ॐ ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं विश्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वधी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। ॐ श्रीकृष्ण परमात्मने नमः। अथ श्रीमद्भगवद्गीता अष्टादशोऽध्यायः मोक्षसंन्यासयोगः। श्रीभगवानुवाच यतः प्रवृत्तिर्भूतानां येन सर्वमिदं ततं स्वकर्मणा तमभ्यर्च्य सिद्धिं विन्दति मानवः। श्रेयान् स्वधर्मो विगुणः परधर्मोत्स्वनुष्ठितात् स्वभावनियतं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्। सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषमपि न त्यजेत्। सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः। असक्तबुद्धिः सर्वत्र जितात्मा विगतस्पृहः नैष्कर्म्यसिद्धिं परमां सन्न्यासेनाधिगच्छति। बुद्ध्या विशुद्धया युक्तो धृत्यात्मानं नियम्य च शब्दादीन् विषयान् त्यक्त्वा रागद्वेषौ व्युदस्य च विविक्तसेवी लग्भाषी यतवाक्कायमानसः ध्यानयोगपरो नित्यं वैराग्यं समुपाश्रितः अहङ्कारं बलं दर्पं कामं क्रोधं परिग्रहं विमुच्य निर्ममः शान्तो ब्रह्मभूयाय कल्पते। ब्रह्मभूतः प्रसन्नात्मा न शोचति न काङ्क्षति समः सर्वेषु भूतेषु मद्भक्तिं लभते पराम्। भक्त्या मामभिजानाति यावान्यश्चास्मि तत्त्वतः ततो मां तत्त्वतो ज्ञात्वा विशते तदनन्तरम् ॐ तत्सत्. So we stopped here yesterday. And what was the importance of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana? We'll just repeat this one more time before we go forward. Yeah, why should we have two words, Jnana and Jnana Nishta? Just give me 1 second. At the same time, the mind seems to want to hold on to things which are clearly not good for one at all. This is in respect to samsara. He so talks of dropping samsara like a hot potato, right? So, which is more difficult in this world, lifting or dropping? Lifting is difficult. Dropping is no problem at all. All you have to do is let go. Now, tell me, is samsara good or bad for you? So, if it is like a hot potato, how difficult is it? What effort is required? But if samsara is fraught with pain, what should you do? Drop it. Where is the difficulty? Like a hot potato, we have to drop all the notions we have about Atma. That is why Shankara says finally that Jnana Nishta is the most easy thing to accomplish. So, Sampadya, there is no difficulty there at all. Now, we've done this actually 2 times over, so I'm just going to quickly go through this. Two words, Jnana and Jnana Nishta. Here he gives the example of that person who holds on to that log. In fact, it's a bear that's holding on to him. So we hold on to our notions even though the nature of the self is self evident, and that is the nature of Brahman. So all the words that indicate the nature of Brahman or the self, like Satya, Jnana, Ananta, etc., are only to eliminate the I notion that we have in what is not I, Anatma. These words that are the Lakshana of Brahman are meant to negate the varieties of notions we have about Atma based upon the Anatma. The properties of one have been superimposed upon the other, and that has to be sorted out. Even though the whole pursuit is in the form of dropping, and we do have the capacity to drop, there seem to be some difficulties. People tell me all the time that they understand this teaching well, but still they are in pain. Not physical pain, but mental pain. This is only because of an incapacity to drop things. Why should they not drop something that is hurting them? They want to drop it. Nobody wants to have pain. What causes mental pain after all? It is nothing but a particular form of thinking. We do not even need to drop that thinking. We just need to understand that this thinking is just thinking. Then you will find that you have nothing to do with pain. Just let the thinking be, and you need not bother about it. I can only think of thinking of an example where you're feeling bad because someone said something, and that feeling bad is what the mental pain is, right? So if you just have to understand that thinking that someone had said something is causing me pain, that is only a form of thinking. And if you just let that thinking be, then you are beyond that mind. You're not got caught up in that mind. You're not entangled in that mind. So you free yourself. You need not bother about that. So just let the thinking be. Removal of the obstructions to gaining the result of jnana is jnana nishtha. So therefore we have two terms, jnana and jnana nishtha. If in spite of understanding this, a person is not able to drop his notions, we have to say that the knowledge has some obstruction. It's not as easy. You just drop the thinking or just let the thinking be. So in order to do that, there may be some obstructions why the person is not able to do that. So the psychology of the human mind has its own logic, its own truth. And therefore, we have what we call a commitment to the pursuit of knowledge, jnana nishtha. So what is jnana nishtha? It is the commitment to the pursuit of knowledge. Jnana, knowledge, is good enough. The conscious Atma is self-evident, and that consciousness, Atma, is myself, which is Brahman. It is so simple, but at the same time, there seems to be some difficulty. Therefore, the word Nishtha is added to Jnana. It is all based on the experience of seekers. It is against all logic, really speaking, because when Atma is consciousness and that Atma is Brahman, all you require is discrimination between Atma and Anatma. Atma Anatma Viveka. The Shastra is the means of knowledge, Pramana, which makes it very clear that the self Atma is Brahman. It is eternal, Nitya. It is pure, Shuddha. It is limitless, Ananta. It is unattached to anything, Asanga. It is free, Mukta. It is the basis for everything, the Adhishtana, the truth of everything, the Satya, without which there is nothing. All that is here is Brahman, and you are that Brahman. Where is the problem? Every word is clear. Still, even though a seeker has a proper teacher and has listened to the Shastra from that teacher, he or she goes on complaining. What does it mean? Seekers have their own experience, which defies all logic. The role of Shravana in removing the obstructions. So each of us as sadhaks have our own experience, and that you cannot really explain and analyze. It defies all logic. We're all in different stages and grades of evolution, and that is based on the amount of entanglement we have with respect to our previous samskaras, our vasanas, those obstructions. The role of Shravana in removing the obstructions. Shankara recognizes this, the Shastra recognizes this, and all the teachers, acharyas, recognize this. Therefore, the Shastra says, the self, my dear, is to be seen, inquired into, analyzed, and contemplated upon. Atma va are drashtavyah, shrotavyah, mantavyah, nididhyasitavyah. The first two, seen and listened about, should be enough. The self is always present, prasiddha, but as a doer and an enjoyer. In a word, as a samsari. It has to be known as Brahman which is not subject to any problem, for which we should give up the I notion in what is not I, Anatma, and remove all doubts about it through listening to the Shastra. The root shrew to hear or listen has the meaning of inquiring, vicharane. The Shastra says that Atma, which is Brahman, is not a samsari. That Shastra is in the form of words and therefore has to be analyzed and understood by you. Only two instructions should be enough here. First, Atma is to be seen, drashtavyaha, that is to draw our attention to both our confusion and the solution. We have a confusion about the Atma, thinking that it is a samsari, and that is why we have to know the Atma. That is the solution. What should we do to know the Atma? Listen to, inquire into the Shastra, Shrotavyaha. That is enough. In listening to the Shastra, it is revealed that Atma is Brahman, and the operation of the Pramana is to know Atma is complete. It is like analyzing a transparent object to see if it is a glass bead or crystal. All you have to do is to go close to it and check the properties of it, its weight, etc. That is enough. It is over. Similarly, to know Atma, you need to analyze it properly, and for that, you require a mirror. An ordinary mirror will only reveal that you are the body, etc. You already know that. Such a mirror can perhaps give me a little more detail, but to know what I am, if there is a confusion, I require another type of mirror which will reveal the real me. That mirror is in the form of words and is called Vedanta. When I look into the word mirror that is called Vedanta, what do I see? Sat Chit Ananda Atma. Through the word mirror, I recognize that Atma is Param Brahma. Then what should I do? Shastra reveals that Atma is Brahman. No effort is required for that knowledge to take place. The role of Manana in removing the obstructions. In spite of that, even though there is no effort to be made, still the Shastra recognizes that people do not always come away knowing the Atma just because they listen to the Shastra. Sometimes it only creates more doubt. A person may have had some doubts about himself before listening to the Shastra, but listening seems to have created new doubts because he's turning his attention towards himself. Previously, his problem was whether somebody loved him or not. Now he wonders, do I love myself? All because of the Vedanta Shastra. This is very natural because Vedanta turns everyone towards yourself, turns everything towards yourself. Vedanta says you are nothing but love. There is no reason for you not to love yourself. But this fellow says, I do not love myself. I am only 5 feet 6 inches and I don't like it at all. What does it mean? This fellow has a confusion about Atma. He thinks it is the body. If the body is Atma, how can you love yourself? And if the mind is Atma, of course you cannot love yourself. And again, there are others who will protest that you cannot be Ishvara. So number one is the confusion about the real me. Whether it is you consider yourself to be the body or the mind or Atma, the Brahm or Brahman, right? So that is the reason why we require Manana, analyzing the words of the Shastra. The second reason is there are others who will protest that you cannot be Ishvara. since you are not omniscient, etc. Initially, you had your own doubts about yourself, and there were ordinary people to confirm them. But now you find there are philosophers, religious people, and even huge organizations with millions of followers confirming your misgivings about yourself. When all these people are protesting against your being Brahman, there is a pressure to perform. There is a pressure to conform. At least in listening to Vedanta, I thought, I'm not that bad. When the rishis say that I'm wonderful, definitely I cannot dismiss their desirable vision and conclude the opposite, that I am not wonderful. But when all these people gang up against me, perhaps it is better to be one of the gang. Otherwise, I am one against so many. I am as lonely as non dual Brahman. What Vedanta says is so desirable because it tells me I am Ananda. I am everything. And there seems to be some logic to it, and also the confirmation of my own experience. No matter how depressed I may have been, there has always been moments when I laughed with abandon at a joke. What does it mean? I have to do an analysis, Manana, and compare what all these various schools of thought that challenge the vision of Vedanta say to my own insight about myself, and determine which is true in the light of what the Shastra says. I have to determine if there is any truth in what they say or not. It all has to be thoroughly analyzed. Therefore, the Shastra says, Atma va are mantavyaha. Sometimes you will hear people say that they have a conviction that Atma is Brahman. Those who have great conviction in the Atma Jnana are all victims of wrong thinking. I can have a conviction that I will go to hell. That is okay. But Atma Jnana has nothing to do with conviction. Conviction is mental. It is some kind of a thinking, some kind of hope, etc., which moves you to commit yourself to something. But this is not a matter for conviction. I know what I am. Then what? I have no problem. So it is very clear the steps. Number one is you have to have jnana nishta, right? Jnana is there. Jnana is what Shastra is telling you, that it is, you are Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. It is the word mirror. It is like it is Vedanta being like a mirror of words. But just that is not enough. You need to have Jnana Nishta, which is commitment to this knowledge. Why? Because each one of us has our own experiences, and these cause some blocks and obstructions. And we cannot really explain these experiences by logic. We don't know from where we have accrued all these samskaras, right? And then, therefore, in order to have that jnana nishta, in order to completely have that realization that I am Atma, Brahman, and not the Anatma, there are some obstructions. So it is not enough if you just listen to the words of the Shastra. Drashtavyaha Atma va are Drashtavyaha Shrotavyaha. So you have to listen. Shravana is important. And then just Shravana is not enough. You will have to do Manana, analyze these words. Otherwise, it will only remain like another concept, another notion. It will remain like a
Om
conviction.
Dr. Brahma, can you bring the microphone to near? Voice is there, but
Is it?
not
I'm
very
actually
loud.
very clear. It's on my lap actually. Is it better
Okay.
now? I'm actually having a.
Use earphones. It is clear.
No, it's clear, but just like your voice is very loud now, but Dr. Brahma's voice is a bit volume is
Yeah, because I am having a sore throat, so that's making
Okay,
my voice a
okay.
little muffled.
Sorry.
Let me know if this is better. I know it's important for you to hear properly. I'm happy if anybody else is available to speak and talk. I mean to read. Let me know. I will share the screen and you can read. So therefore, Atma va are mantavyaha is important. Why? Because there are, number one, my own experiences might defy otherwise. That is one. I still think that I am the body or I am the mind. Therefore, I have to analyze it. That is on one side. The second is there are so many others out there, including huge organizations, religious leaders who say you cannot be Atma, you cannot be Ishvara because you're not omniscient. So produces this also creates that confusion as to how come the whole gang there is saying I cannot be Ishvara, but the Vedanta is saying I am the non-dual Brahman. So because of this confusion, you require analysis of the words of the Shastra, which is Manana. So, and see, this paragraph is also important. Sometimes you will hear people say that they have a conviction that Atma is Brahman. We have to understand this. I don't think I've got this conviction part very clear. So maybe if anybody else has an understanding, can share. Those who have great conviction in the Atma Jnana are all victims of wrong thinking. I can have a conviction that I will go to hell. That is okay. But Atma Jnana has nothing to do with conviction. Conviction is mental. It is some kind of a thinking, some kind of hope, etc., which moves you to commit yourself to something. But this is not a matter for conviction. I know what I am. Then what? I have no problem. What I understand is it should not just remain like a concept in your mind, that conviction. It has to be knowledge that I am Atma. That is what I kind of seem to understand from this. So if anybody can also share their understanding. The difference between conviction and why conviction is wrong thinking.
In conviction, like we are using our mind, no, like we are at the level of the mind, thinking that, and the Atma Jnana is not related to mind. It is like uh, it's away from this, that uh, body mind complex. If you see, they are just the tools basically. So it is when you know what I am that consciousness, then that conviction feeling, that conviction, this thing is all mental. It is not uh, like it is we who are creating. No, that conviction is that we are having at the mind level. I don't know how to put it, but it's again what the small I is doing, not that higher consciousness.
Correct. But isn't this what we get from doing Shravana? See, when you're listening to the Vedanta Vakyas, this is what we get. We get the understanding that,
Understanding of, yeah,
correct, understanding that Atma, what Atma is and what Anatma is. That is what you get by Shravana.
yeah, right.
So here Swamiji is bringing in this word conviction, which is different from understanding. Is that what it is?
We like understanding is one thing we understand, but when we come to that proof, when that final proof is there, that is that conviction, that you are convinced now that this is the truth. So it is understanding is that we are gathering information from every source which is available, and then you get convinced that okay, this is the final thing. So that, I think what he is trying to say is that you are convinced now that this is Atma, whereas we are studying that nobody, not even an enlightened soul, can say he is enlightened, because I am feeling short of words also now.
Mm.
Like he cannot say I am enlightened. An enlightened person will not say I am enlightened. So in this way, when we are gathering all the information that we are studying about the Atma and Anatma, and then when we finally reach to some point of that final proof we get, that okay, after negating everything, we come to know okay, this is Atma, but still that is not perceived in this way. So it is
It is not this is Atma, I am Atma, because there is no
yeah,
this over there.
yeah, I am sorry, I am
I
Atma.
am
So no,
Atma.
like
Mm.
I am saying that if you are differentiating between the
Right,
Atma and Anatma,
right.
then you come to that conclusion, no, that you are convinced that okay, after negating that I am Atma. So if even reaching that point, you uh, you are again using your mind and your intellect to uh, reach that point, whereas the Atma, its nature is that it's all pervading. It's that consciousness which cannot be uh, uh, like it cannot, all the qualities of Atma which we sorry, which we read in the Atma Bodha, uh, it is such that it is nishkriya, it is all pervading, it is no act, like there's no activity. It is like that which you cannot at all. It is only at, I think, when we feel one with that universe, that higher consciousness, is that perception, or you can say that is Atma. When you feel that sambhav or that expansion, so you cannot basically come to some conclusion that okay, finally I have reached this. Maybe I'm not very clear in my explanation.
Yeah. No, no, I think that is well, you've explained it well. I'm also going back to the dictionary meaning of what this word conviction is. There are two words. One, conviction is a formal declaration by the verdict of a jury or the decision of a judge in a court of law that someone is guilty of a criminal offense. She had a previous conviction for a similar offense. That is one meaning. The other meaning is a firmly held belief or opinion. She takes pride in stating her political convictions. So it is a belief or opinion. So whereas here, that's the meaning of conviction. What Vedanta, what Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana will give us is not this conviction. It is not just a belief, but it is knowledge, it is
It is
understanding,
the truth. It is the
truth.
truth it will give. Yeah.
Yeah. Because then you might just get stuck there. You might say, I believe I'm Atma, that's it. Period. You may not do any other effort towards Jnana Nishta. Some kind of hope which moves you to commit yourself to something. So conviction is mental, whereas this is even beyond that. It is a revelation. It is removal of even that mental sheath. The role of Nididhyas, thank you, Dr. Savita. The role of Nididhyasana in removing the obstructions. After years of studying Vedanta, we can see people saying, I know I am Brahman. Is my voice okay?
Yeah, it's fine.
It's okay.
It's fine.
I,
Yeah.
I know I am Brahman, but the but seems to remain. The first but is, am I Brahman? Then one says, yes, the Shastra says so, and it is made clear by inquiring into the Shastra by Shravana. And now the second but comes up. But am I really what the Shastra says? That doubt is also removed by analyzing what the Shastra says by Manana. After Manana, it looks as though one has to admit that I do know that I am Brahman. But the but seems to continue. Then what is the problem? Then the third but comes up, and one says, Swamiji, I know that I am Brahman, but I do not behave like I am Brahman. I still have fear, worry, etc. If I am Brahman, how can I get worried? This is because the knowledge that I am the limitless Brahman, full and complete, is not yet completely owned up. This owning up requires sitting down quietly and owning up this fact about myself and removing all subtle obstructions that prevent this owning up. This is called Nididhyasana. I will repeat these two lines. So, why I know that I am Brahman, but I still do not behave like I am Brahman. I still have fear, worry, etc. So this is because the knowledge that I am the limitless Brahman, full and complete, is not yet completely owned up. This owning up requires sitting down quietly and owning up this fact about myself and removing all subtle obstructions. See, this has to be underlined. These subtle obstructions that prevent this owning up. This is called Nididhyasana. The obstructions are always due to old habit. I have the age-old habit of considering myself to be small and insignificant. Worry comes out of the small eye, not out of the big eye. In fact, worry, concern, anxiety, panic are all born of the child in us. It is not even the small person. It is the smallest, the child. Even though the body has grown to become an adult, a child remains buried under the adulthood. When you reach 40, it begins to probe its way to the surface. It can wait for 40 years, not more than that. After that, it cannot remain hidden any longer. Thus, there seems to be a condition in which your experience is opposed to what you know, a viparita bhavana. See, this is the experiences that defy logic, that everybody has their own experiences, which is opposed to what you know. What we know is there. There's a mental concept that this is what Atma is, this is what Anatma is. And you seem to understand it fairly well. But what is preventing us, you, me, and I, everybody else who's still not enlightened, is this experience, these old habits, the so called child in us. And this causes a viparita bhavana. Yeah. So, thus, there seems to be a condition in which your experience is opposed to what you know, a viparita bhavana. It is purely due to childhood. That is why we can call it habit or kashaya. We can call it anything as long as we understand that it is all from the past. We call it impressions, we can call it vasana, call it kashaya or viparita bhavana. It has nothing to do with the present. Events of the present only serve as a trigger to awaken unresolved issues from the past. The anger that comes for the small thing that happened today is not appropriate to what happened today. Even an ordinary person who does not know anything about Brahman can see that the anger that this situation evokes is too great for the situation. It is something like hanging a person for a traffic violation. The reaction is not appropriate at all. Therefore, we understand there is some kashaya or whatever you want to call it from the past. By the past, we do not mean past karma. That past karma can only create situations wherein you can feel happy or unhappy, depending on your own disposition. It can give you a disease or some external mishap, which are not conducive for comfortable living. But it cannot give sorrow, dukkha. That comes purely from yourself. And the self is Brahman, in which any situation is simply absorbed. Where is the question of a reaction of anger, etc.? The one who is free and full, who knows he is Brahman, cannot be angry. So these habits or kashayas are from our past experiences, and each of us has a different set of kashayas, different combinations of kashayas. So therefore we can't really explain why, and it's not, that is why Swamiji mentioned earlier, it defies all logic. But this is different from past karma. Past karma can only give you situations that make you happy or unhappy. They cannot give sorrow, dukkha, that comes purely from yourself. And that self is what? That is Brahman. So this part I'm not really very clear. So he says it is the dukkha, sukha, dukkha comes from the self. like we said yesterday, like how Gurudev says, pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So pain is what we're getting from our past karma. Because of our prarabdha, whatever prarabdha we're born with, we have to go through that. But that suffering is it's dependent upon the self, whether take you want to suffer or you don't want to suffer, or you take a stance that I will go through it without suffering. So that is coming from the self, in
Yeah,
which any
when
situation
like
can be absorbed. Yeah, please go ahead.
when we are in this Atma Jnana, then once you have this Atma Jnana, then though unhappy situations would be there, but you will not be affected. It will not give you sorrow. So it is like, like you are saying it rightly, that situations will come, they all unfavorable, like not very, which are not conducive to you, but they will not give you sorrow once you are in Atmagyana, or you are doing that Nididhyasnam, you are uh, that imbibing that knowledge. Once you have, I think this is what it means, because even if unhappy situations are there, you do not have that sorrow, dukkha, that comes purely from yourself. From yourself is that when unhappy things, like unconducive thing, or which are around you, they make you unhappy only and give you sorrow only when you analyze at your self level, no, that atma level, then you feel sad. But when you have that knowledge, you just think it as it is an event and it will pass, and it is for there for some cause. So then that dukkha will not be there, because you are that self, that you have realized that. Because next sentence they say, na, and the self is Brahman, in which any situation is simply absorbed. So I think this is like what I understood.
Ah. So there are
Am I
some things. Yeah. Uh, yeah, I think that is.
only with the help of knowledge? I think that Atma Jnana only, no, that, or reading this Vedanta Shastra, that sorrow is one thing and being unhappy is one thing. Unhappy, it's like on the superficial level, but when it gets inside, deep inside, and it gives you grief and sorrow, and you are feeling stifled inside, that sorrowness, that grief, it is only when you perceive so much and you do not have that uh, awareness, then only you get inside, no, and you feel.
Yeah, I am thinking of two people. One who has gone to the Vedanta, who is listening to the Vedanta and has a fair idea of what the Atma is. For him, versus a person who's not exposed to this knowledge at all, there's a situation that is causing pain because of the past karma. It is both of them are going through pain. They have the pain. But the first one, his experience of pain, his perception of that pain, it may not make him sorrowful. He does not say, oh, the whole world is coming down on my shoulders. He does not lament so much. He is going through the pain, but with a smile. Whereas the other person who has not exposed to this knowledge, is is completely engulfed in that sorrow. So is that what this thing is? The past karma cannot give sorrow. See, here the distinction is between the past karma versus um, the disposition,
Uh,
isn't it?
yeah, it's like yeah, you're right. Our own disposition is that what we are, how we are taking the things, no,
Mm.
how our mindset is, what uh, what you are feeling, like internally, how you are taking the things to be your mindset basically.
Correct. And that mindset again is linked to our old habits, the
Yeah,
kashayas, the
yeah,
impressions, all that we have. That is why sometimes your anger is inappropriate. Like the example given here, for a traffic violation, that person is hanged. All you require is a trigger. The events of the present only act as a trigger. There is that beautiful sentence that events of the present only serve as a trigger to awaken unresolved issues from the past. So, what we have to do is to make peace with our past. Let the past be, number one. And in order to do that, today, as I was reading, the thing was, and I think even yesterday we had discussed, Suresh, she had mentioned sadhana is such an important tool. Meditation is the key, especially Saj meditation, that that will help um, dissolve all these past impressions. So therefore,
yeah,
the need to meditate to remove all these impressions, all these old habits and the kashayas, the viprita bhavana that form subtle obstructions to our complete understanding that we are nothing but the other. Yeah. So therefore, and the self is Brahma. So past karma cannot give sorrow, dukkha, that comes purely from yourself. And the self is Brahman, in which any situation is simply absorbed. Where is the question of a reaction of anger, etc.? The one who is free and full, who knows he is Brahman, cannot be angry. Once, two Swamis that I know, one was perhaps in his 40s, the other in his 50s, were discussing some verses in Viveka Chudamani, where there is a description of a jnani, a wise person. The description of the wise person by the Shastra is meant to be a prashamsa, praise, and not to make any judgment about who is a jnani. The description is purely meant to inspire a person so that he would love to become a jnani and therefore pursue knowledge. And sometimes, in the description of a jnani, we understand the nature of the knowledge itself, and so it becomes a means to reveal the vastu. So it is only meant as a prashamsa and not to judge who is a jnani. One of these swamis, the older one, was explaining the meaning of a verse describing a jnani. The younger one, who was a little better educated, said, Swamiji, how can we discuss what a jnani is unless we are jnanis ourselves? At this question, the older Swami got very angry. How can you say that I am not a jnani? He said, and he walked out. Later, he left that place for good. This kind of behavior is all due to childhood problems. So, this older Swami had unresolved childhood problems, which is why he got angry in the first place. If he had made peace with his past, he would not have got angry. This issue here is not what makes a jnani or who is a jnani, but what is this knowledge, jnana? Atma is Brahman. Either you know this fact or you do not know it. Nobody can say anything about this. Even to say, I am a jnani is a silly thing. The one who knows that he is Brahman will not say he is a Jnani. He will say, I am Brahman. Whether one is a Jnani or an Ajnani is not a matter for discussion. He says, Aham Brahmasmi. It is a matter of understanding what the knowledge is, a process of learning and getting clarity. It is silly to say somebody is enlightened and somebody is not enlightened. We are not here to make a judgment about anybody nor about ourselves. I neither say anything about myself nor about others. Free from judgment, I simply enjoy the process of knowing. I think this is what we are supposed to do. Where is the question of judgment? Because often we keep mentioning, I am not enlightened, or we talk about enlightened people. So even there, it is a matter of understanding. And we should enjoy the process of knowing. It is not that on a particular day I got up enlightened. Atma is always present, Nitya Siddha. It is not an event. Shastra says that you are always enlightened, Nitya Buddha, always liberated, Nitya Mukta. So, where is the problem? How can anyone say that he got enlightened at a particular time on a particular day? It is not that suddenly everything becomes clear. You are always enlightened. Although, because this is true, we are always enlightened, but isn't that my understanding was it is that moment where you that ajnana, the veil of ajnana gets off, and then you realize that you are Atma. Isn't that a moment? Although you are completely on Nitya Buddha, Nitya Siddha, everything is fine. But that the dawn of knowledge, isn't that a moment?
Yeah, that is also enlightenment when you when as we are reading and coming to know some enlightenment is happening,
Mm.
like, but it is for a very short period, no, it is, we come to know that reality, but we don't live the reality. It is like it's all superficial. It doesn't get practical, when you act, then again those all all the other aspects, like the anger, the all these, they come, the indecisiveness, then so many things, but yes, when we are reading the knowledge, you feel, so that is why I think when reading the shastra, and one is one's inclination is towards this knowledge, or this path, that is why you have that hunger to read further, and you feel that it's, we should read one more paragraph, so it is like that, and you feel nice inside. That is why you want to keep going until your mind gets tired, it doesn't accept. So it is, I think, because of this atmagyana only that we have this feeling, like I feel this way.
So it is like peeling an onion. It is not, it's a gradual process of cleansing, of understanding. And it is not, um, but from what China had mentioned, he said that is the having that samatva bhavana is the preliminary is the penultimate step. After that, it is dependent upon the grace when that knowledge will dawn. That antakarna shuddhi and antakarna naischalya, all that is the preparation for that knowledge to dawn. And the whole process of knowing itself is enjoying the whole process of knowing, free from judgment. We do not judge others or ourselves as whether others are enlightened, I am not enlightened. It's not a matter of judgment, but it's a process of understanding. Because, and I don't want to put down anybody, but from what little I was, when my son was studying in Chinmaya International School, Coimbatore, I would need to travel there for his annual activities and things like that. And there is a Chinmaya Vihar next to that. Normally would get accommodation there, but if that accommodation was full, I had to go to the closest ashram next was the Isha ashram. I wouldn't like to stay in a hotel and all that. So I said ashram is better. So that Isha ashram, I stayed maybe about 4 or 5 times in all the 2 years that he was there. So I had a little interest in knowing about Sadhguru, although I have not met him in person. When I read a little about him, he had mentioned that exactly what is mentioned here in this paragraph. He got enlightened at one particular. He mentions he gets enlightened. He got enlightened. So that itself kind of um, kept that distance. I said, I'm not so keen on following whatever he's doing or saying, because in my mind's eye, I had kind of said this, a person who's enlightened will not say so. So it's not, of course, I'm saying this on a public, it gets onto YouTube, but then this is my understanding of him. Exactly what Gurudev says. He says, a person who's enlightened will not say so. And if he says so, he is not enlightened. Yeah, I don't want to deviate from there, but we'll come back to the paragraph. So, on superficial analysis, the situation in which the elder Swami got angry looks justifiable. Because according to him, he is a jnani, and somebody insinuated that he is not. But on the other hand, if one looks carefully, it is not justifiable at all. That is why the other Swami said, if he is a jnani, he is fulfilled, aptakami, and there should be no anger. For an aptakami, situations that make others angry are like one drop of water dropping into the ocean. What will happen? Nothing. It just gets lost. Similarly, if you are limitless, akhandam Brahma, what is it that he is going to respond to? If at all there is response, it will be laughter. Some joy, some empathy, compassion, love can be there. Where is anger? There is no possibility at all. So beautifully describes the state of being enlightened, as in he's an aptakami, he's a fulfilled person. So he is like the ocean, and any event, any situation that triggers anger in other normal people is like a drop falling into ocean for this aptakami. So it makes no difference at all. So if at all there is any response, there will be only laughter. Maybe there'll be some empathy, some joy, compassion coming out of him. For that same question, Swamiji, how can we discuss about jnanis when we are ourselves not jnanis? Only jnanis can discuss jnanis. So for that question, he may just laugh it off if he's actually an enlightened person and not get angry. Perhaps the Swami who got angry did have the understanding of the Shastra. In spite of understanding, if there is still inappropriate anger, inappropriate hatred, and inappropriate sorrow, we call that viparita bhavana. For that, we have contemplation on what we know, nididhyasana. Thus, the Shastra says, Atma va are nididhyasitavyaha. The Atma has to be contemplated upon, and all the viparita bhavanas have to be removed by this contemplation. With that in view, the Shastra adds one more word, jnana nishtha. This jnana nishtha is a knowledge which has no obstruction whatsoever. But coming back to this nididhyasana, so how do we remove these obstructions, viparita bhavanas? By understanding, right? It is, you go through the words of the Shastra, you sit in a quiet place, you analyze it, and then you are in my mind's understanding, it is that you are uh, strengthening those um, the the words of the Vedanta, words of the Shastra, making them dhrida, making them firm. Whereas, and any of these obstructions that come by, you are again doing a little analysis and letting them go, letting and dropping the past. Is that what we do in Nididhyasana? It's all a matter of processing. It's a matter of understanding where that anger is coming from, or where whatever little obstructions are coming up. Okay. This jnana nishta is a knowledge which has no obstruction whatsoever. Why is such a word necessary? Because of the experience of the seekers, mumukshus. It is not logical at all, but that is how it is. Without taking this into account, there are some teachers who will just advise a seeker who has some problem to dismiss it all as mithya. So, without taking the experience of the seekers into account, which is that child in us, which is that old habits in us, there are some teachers who will just advise a seeker who has some problem to dismiss it all as mithya. If he says he feels bad, the teacher will ask him, what is bad? Your body, your mind, Atma? There is no badness. It is all mithya. Forget it. This is all correct, but it is a thing to be understood, not passed off as advice in a cryptic sentence. Neither the person who uses that sentence knows anything, nor does the one who receives the sentence gains anything. They just have some words. That this is mithya or maya is a thing to be discovered. It is not a matter for advice. If it is handled by advice, the problem remains a problem. The Shastra recognizes the problem and shows us how to address it through a life of prayer, proper attitude, and finally by what is called nididhyasana, contemplation. It is this contemplation that removes the notion we have of ourselves that is opposed to what we know, viparita bhavana, and leads to jnana nishta. So this is the way out. It is not just you label it and advise, get advice, or you advise yourself, say it is all mithya. You're only whitewash. If there is a scar on the wall, you're just painting it white. but that scar remains. That scar is the black spot is that of our old habits, that the vasanas that we have. So that has to be understood. It has to be cleared up completely through a life of prayer, proper attitude. Proper attitude here will be our karma yoga, attitude of karma yoga, finally by what is called nididhyasana, contemplation. It is this contemplation that removes the notion we have of ourselves that is opposed to what we know, viparita bhavana, and leads to jnana nishta. I think it's a process of analyzing, processing, the understanding. This is what the whole gist of nididhyasana is. Rather than just pass it off as, oh, this is all mithya. Momentarily, probably it will work. You'll think, oh, I'm feeling bad. It's all happening in the mind, it's in the body, it's all mithya. But then those old vasanas will come up again. It's like you're just putting the lid on them, but they're all still there. So we have to weed it out little by little. And through meditation, through this doing a silent contemplation. What we're doing here is in a group. What we're doing is manana. But the same thoughts that we've learned, taking one or two of those sentences that we have listened to and sitting quietly by ourselves and reflecting upon that would amount to nididhyasana. And of course, I think dhyana is also included there because as we learned, sahaj is something that removes all our past impressions. It's a combination of both. So we'll go to the next verses. Anyone wants to share anything? Please go ahead. Introduction to the next verses. So yesterday, Sarlaji was asking in one word or in a sentence, what is Manana, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana? Maybe this is what we can always, all of us can share. Shravana is listening to the words of the Shastra, where the words of the Shastra act like a mirror and take us deeper within. We're starting looking at ourselves rather than looking out externally. So from a samsari, you become a mumukshu. That is Shravana gives us that. Second, analyzing the words of the Shastra is Manana. Third, Nididhyasana is when you contemplate it, when you make it your own, it becomes your Nidhi. Like Sureshji mentioned, it becomes your wealth. You're contemplating about it. And with this contemplation, those old habits, those childhood, the child in us, which brings us the kashaya and everything, that gets diluted. Those little obstructions are removed. And then you have jnana nishtha, that commitment to knowledge. So by listening, we have jnana. By doing nididhyasana, we attain jnana nishtha. Introduction to the next verses. From now on, we are going to see some verses which talk about what we have to do to gain this jnana nishtha. It is a summary of that part of the sixth chapter that talks about meditation. put here in a different form in a few words. There are three types of knowledge with reference to Atma, the self. One is Paroksha Jnana, indirect knowledge of the fact that the self is Brahman, limitless. This really, this is really not knowledge but Shraddha in what the Shastra says. It is a belief that Atma is essentially independent of the body mind sense complex and is identical with limitless Brahman. Then, by exposure to the teaching of the Shastra from a teacher who handles it as a pramana, the cognition, vritti jnana, that I am Brahman, aham brahmasmi, takes place. As the Shastra tells it, the listener discovers this fact. If the person has all the necessary qualifications, there is no obstruction to this knowledge. This is clear, immediate knowledge, aparoksha jnana. But the cognition, vritti jnana, can be opposed by obstructions, pratibandhakas, because it involves the self, atma. If the knowledge is of an object, once you have the vritti jnana, you know it for certain. There is no further problem. There may be some difficulty in gaining the initial cognition, as in understanding the equation on relativity E equals mc squared. This is not an ordinary equation. It takes a lot of knowledge of physics to understand it. Even though there are obstructions to understand an equation like this, once known, it is known. But in spite of having understood that I am Brahman, there can be obstructions to clarity because aham is involved. The problem is that there is an orientation of I being something entirely different that stands opposed to the fact that I is free from all forms of limitation. In spite of the vritti jnana, aham can appear opposed to that cognition created by the Shastra. This is knowledge with obstructions. Sapratibandhaka jnana. The pursuit of jnana nishta is for the sake of removing these obstructions and for gaining certainty of this knowledge of Atma. It involves manana and nididhyasana and is usually coupled with a lifestyle sannyasa. The next three verses tell how this jnana nishta is to be pursued. So, jnana nishta, how do we do? Is to, there are 3-4 concepts that have been introduced here. Paroksha jnana is, there are 3 types of knowledge with reference to the Atma. One is paroksha jnana, vritti jnana, and aparoksha jnana. Paroksha jnana is indirect knowledge. That is what the Shastra says, and it is actually more shraddha because you have faith and belief in the words of the Shastra. Whereas when you're exposed to the teaching of the Shastra from a teacher who handles it as a pramana, the cognition vritti jnana that I am Brahman, aham brahmasmi takes place. So if this person has this cognition and he has all the qualifications necessary, there is no obstruction to this knowledge, he gets that knowledge, becomes aparoksha jnana, becomes immediate knowledge. But with this vritti jnana, if there are, supposing he still has some obstructions, then it becomes sapratibandhaka jnana, knowledge with some obstructions. And the whole process of jnana nishta is to do this with manana and nididhyasana. With manana and nididhyasana, you remove these pratibandhakas. And how is this different from other knowledge in the empirical world, in the ephemeral world, in the knowledge, with any knowledge outside in the samsara? Once you know it, no matter how difficult it is, as difficult as this equation, E equals mc squared, once you know it, you know it. But whereas With respect to the aham, with respect to the I, there is an orientation that we have had over the past lives. This orientation, what we all have is, what sadhaks have is that I am small, I am limited. So that is opposed to this. So even in spite of you having the vritti jnana, this aham can appear opposed to that cognition. So it usually involves, how do we remove this? By manana nididhyasana, usually coupled with a lifestyle sannyasa. Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayan styaktva ragadveshau vyudasya cha. Vishuddhaya buddhya, with a mind that is very clear. Yuktaha, the one who is endowed. Dhritya, with firm resolve. Atmanam, the body, mind, sense complex. Niyamya, mastering. Cha, and Shabdadin Vishayan, all sense objects beginning with sound. Tyaktva, that is beginning with sound. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Shabdadin Vishayan, all the five sense organs. Tyaktva, giving up. Ragadveshau, likes and dislikes. Vyudasya cha, and giving up. So, Vishuddhaya buddhya yuktaha dhritya atmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayan tyaktva ragadveshau vyudasya cha. The one who endowed with a mind that is very clear, mastering the body, mind, sense complex, being endowed with firm resolve, and giving up the sense objects such as sound, etc., and giving up likes and dislikes. And the 52nd verse, Vivikta sevi lagvashi yatavakkaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. Vivikta sevi, one who lives in a quiet place. Lagvashi, one who eats lightly. Yat vak kaya manasaha, one whose speech, body, and mind are mastered. Dhyana yoga paraha, one who is committed to contemplation. Nityam, always. Vairagyam, freedom from longing. Samupashritaha, who has completely resorted to. Vivikta sevi lagvashi yata vakaya manasaha dhyana yoga paraha nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. The one who lives in a quiet place, who eats lightly, whose speech, body, and mind are mastered, who is always committed to contemplation, who has completely resorted to freedom from longing. And the 53rd verse, Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham varigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Ahankaram, misplaced I sense. Balam, power. Darpam, vainfulness. Kamam, binding desire. Krodham, anger. Parigraham, ownership of external things. Vimuchya, giving up. Nirmamaha, the one who has no sense of ownership of his own body, etc. Shantaha, the one who is tranquil. Brahma bhuyaya kalpate, is fit for certainty about being Brahman. Ahankaram, balam, darpam, kamam, krodham, parigraham, vimuchya, nirmama shantaha, brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Giving up misplaced I sense, power, vainfulness, binding desire, anger, ownership of external things, the one who has no sense of ownership of his own body, etc., and who is tranquil, is fit for certainty about being Brahman. So I think we'll stop here today. Anybody wants to say, add anything? So this is again a roadmap being given to us. Verses 51 to 53 is what is the kind of lifestyle? What is the qualifications? How do we go about? What do we drop? Ahankaram, balam, darpam, kamam, krodham, parigraham. And how? Buddhya vishuddhaya, with a mind that is very clear. So how will we get that antakarana shuddhi? Through raga dvesha vyudasya cha and shabdadin vishayan tyaktva. So having that firm resolve, giving up all the sense objects, giving up binding likes and dislikes, sitting in a quiet place, vivikta sevi lagvashi yatava kaya manasa, whose speech, body, mind are mastered, who has um, that integrity. What is said, what is thought is said, and what is said is acted upon. And who eats lightly. Nityam Vairagyam Samupashrita. How indebted we are to Bhagwan for having laid out all this so beautifully. That is why, although this knowledge is like around 5,000 years ago or so, it's believed, this is so relevant to even the current age and time. Anyone wants to share or add, please do. Otherwise, we can stop here today. We will start from where we left today. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Parnamastu. Jai Gurudev. If we can all do some Nididhyasana on what Nididhyasana is and how we go about doing it, that will go a long way. Rather than when we play the Maya Panchakam, everything is Maya, correct. But just negating everything as Maya will only leave a concept in our mind. It will not lead to an understanding. But Nididhyasana is something deeper. It makes us understand how all this is happening. Those obstructions get removed. So I'll play Maya Panchakam today.
निरुपमनित्यनिरंशकेऽप्यखण्डे मयि चिति सर्वविकल्पनादिशून्ये घटयति जगदीश जीवभेदम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया श्रुतिशतनिगमान्तशोधकानपि अहह धनादिनिदर्शनेन सद्यः कलुषयति चतुष्पदाद्यभिन्ना न घटितघटना पडीयसी माया सुखचिदखण्डविबोधमद्वितीयम् वियदनलादिविनिर्मित्ते नियोज्य भ्रमयति भवसागरे नितान्तम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया अपगतगुणवर्णजातिभेदे सुखचितिविप्रविडाद्यहं कृतिं च स्फुटयति सुतदारगेहमोहम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया विधिहरिहरविभेदमप्यखण्डे बत विरचय्य बुधानपि प्रकामम् भ्रमयति हरिहरविभेदभावान् घटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया